Hey guys, welcome to RhomanysRealm. I'm Romany, and today I want to talk a bit about all sorts of things. So grab yourself a drinky and let's have a chat, shall we? So over the last few weeks, I've been a little bit absent. I've been going through some stuff in terms of my art. I guess it's been coming on for a while because I've been feeling it for most of last year as well. But I just got bored, honestly. I was bored. I felt like I was in a rut, like I wasn't doing anything interesting, like I wasn't doing anything fun, which is weird because I was liking what I was doing. I was liking the art that I was producing, but I just didn't enjoy producing it, which is a very weird place to be because that's definitely not me. I enjoy the process more than the outcome, usually. First of all, I decided to take a break. That's always my answer. If you hit that wall where the frustration is more than the actual doing, then just take a break. Have a think. Go and have a talk with yourself. You know, the usual thing. So that's what I did. And while I was doing that, I was watching various YouTubers, and I'll put links down below to the people I've been looking at both on YouTube and on Instagram. But basically, the two YouTubers that stood out to me were Art with Emily, and Lee Ellickson. Although I'm not really into their art style, I mean it's fun and cutesy and bright and colourful, and it's all the things I don't do, basically. But the way they work, the process that they work, is very interesting to me. I have spent my whole life doing tiny little details with ballpoint pens and colour pencils. And honestly, I've got to the point now where I don't have the patience for it. I don't have the time for it. And I certainly don't have the eyesight for it anymore. And after a while, my hands start shaking. I've never experienced it before, but oh, what's going on here? Let's fix that. I've never experienced it before, but suddenly I can't control line work the way I used to. So all of this together made me think, well, maybe we should move away from the hugely detailed stuff and work a little bit more loosely. How do I do that? Because when you've spent so long doing minute details, it's very hard to suddenly just throw things together. I found Emily first, and I really liked the way she layered colours. It was the same method that I use. You know, she does watercolours, then she does colour pencil. Sometimes she does a bit of ink or a little bit of pen work. But somehow it was so loose and free. And there was lots of detail without it taking forever to actually put the details in. And that was a new thing to me, seeing somebody do a lot of detail and make things look really interesting and impactful without rendering every single eyelash, as I tend to do. Because of the way YouTube works, immediately after I'd watched all of Em's videos, I then was recommended Lee Ellickson's videos. I watch some of her vlogs anyway, but I've never sat and watched all her videos, like art videos or anything. I tend to just have her on in the background and I listen to what she's saying, but I've never really sat and watched what she does. Mostly because it's not my kind of art. I like what she does, but it's very bright and colourful and in your face, and I don't really gel with it. And it's also very cute. So, you know, it's just not my thing. But I like her personality, so I listen to her vlogs. And I actually sat down and watched some of her art and some of her paint with me's. And there she was doing the same techniques, water-based media. She quite often uses gouache, but she also uses watercolour and acrylic. And then she does pen work and Posca and pencil over the top. And was like, hang on a minute, this is exactly the same technique, different outcome, but also very loose. Haha. Now we're getting somewhere. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to try this. Then there was a couple of girls who have formed a breakfast club in the UK. They're all children's illustrators. And I know a few of them from following them anyway, purely because they're UK artists. And all of them work in the very same similar style of, you know, different ways. Some of them are mixed media, some of them are collage, some of them are, you know, watercolor and pencil, some of them are pen and ink, some of them are digital, but they all work in this very loose, scribbly way. And I'm like, well, hang on a minute. You're telling me that when you draw a dog, you don't have to render every single hair of the dog. You can just scribble color the dog like you would if you were a 5-year-old. And if you do it right, it'll look like fur. Mind blown. I mean, it sounds obvious in retrospect, but when I think about drawing hair, I think about drawing individual hairs because I'm a detail girl. That's what I do. Anyway, fast forward a little bit. I started actually listening more to what Lee was saying about when she went through a similar rut with her style, where she felt like she was just going through the motions. She was producing art that she liked, but she didn't enjoy doing it. And I thought, aha, here's where we have a problem. This is the problem I have. If I can find the video where she talks about it, I will link it down below. She said she didn't feel like she was blocked so much as she was stuck in a rut. She had plenty of ideas, but she didn't know how to do them because she didn't enjoy doing what she was doing. So what she started to do was play with different things. And one of the things that she played with was a limited color palette, which I've never used. And like Lee says in her video, she actually said, I've never used a limited color palette. I like to use all the colors all the time, all at once. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. Here we go. And she said, I decided to use a limited color palette, choose my favorite colors. And she talks in her video about how she chooses colors and what she uses. And then she said, the next thing I did was to start a 365 project. Because after a year of doing art for myself every day, I should know what it is I enjoy doing. Now it ties in with, again, something else that I've been working on this year. One of my only goal this year is to make more art for me. Not just for, oh, I'm making it for a video, I'm making it for Patreon, I'm doing it for this, I'm doing it for that, I've got to do a sticker, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm just taking time to make art for me. And if I'm making art for me, then I have to enjoy it. I liked this advice and I thought, how can I do this and choose a colour palette, but not have to just do red, yellow and blue? Because I've tried that before and it bores me to tears. What she said is that she chose her favourite colours. So I thought, okay, well, I'm a witch. I do astrology. Maybe what I can do is use my star sign colours just as a jumping off point. Because I don't really know what my favourite colours are. But that's not true. I know what my favourite colours are. My favourite colours are all so dark that you couldn't paint anything with them. I like black. I like dark blue. I like dark green, dark red, dark purple. Are you seeing a pattern here? Yeah. So then Sanctuary World, I'll link it down below as well, posted a series of colour palettes they'd come up with for all the signs. And they said, you know, look at your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign and see what colours gel with you. So I did. And I looked at my Aquarius palette, which is my sun sign, and I went, ooh, that's my favourite colours. Suddenly I knew what my favourite colours were. My palette involves this purpley colour, grey, super dark blue, and white. That's basically my colour palette, and that's the colours that I gravitate towards. I like to use a lot of white. I like to use a lot of dark blue rather than black. Surprisingly, even though I really like black, I very rarely paint with black. I usually go for blue or very dark purples. and then I teamed them with mauves and greys and light blues. I was like, okay, this could work. Let's try this. So over on my Patreon, we've started an art club on a Saturday where we basically just turn up for 2 hours and we make art. And I thought, let's try this with them. And quite randomly, I said, okay, we're going to use our sun sign colours, and then we're going to choose 2 colours, one from our moon sign palette and one from our rising sign palette. This is the palette that I ended up with. The Calypso Blue, I always call it Calypso Blue, it's this colour. Calypso Blue, it's not quite teal, it's more turquoisey. This is the accent colour that I nearly always use. The other accent colour that I use is kind of a muted, dusky, pinky red colour. It's kind of hard to define. I usually call it rose madder, but it's sort of this kind of colour. It's a kind of burgundy, purpley, pinky, reddish colour. Well, the colour that was assigned to me from my, or not assigned, but the nearest colour to that from my Sagittarius, which is my rising sign, was bright pink. So I tried it. Well, straight away the bright pink wasn't working. I stuck with the darker reds and muted pinks. And that's okay. And I did that for a week. So 7 days worth of art with only those colours. No experimentation, no mixing, no anything, just with this idea of I'm going to just paint something every day. Make something every day just for me. I'll post it on Instagram just as something that I'm doing. And I kind of snuck in as I'm doing a 365, but I didn't tell anybody. I'm now 2 weeks in, I'm still going strong. And in that 1 week, I painted several things that I really loved. I made this guy. Well, these guys. I love this one. It's got some very definite Lee Ellickson vibes, but that's okay because these are studies. These are for me. I'm not trying to copy what Lee does. I'm using her technique to integrate into what I do. So obviously there's going to be a little bit of overlap while I get used to it and while I experiment with it until it looks like my stuff. This one was a later one, and obviously you can tell this is much more like what I normally would paint. I've got some small studies that I've been working on. There's a bat that I did with my limited colour palette. I was really enjoying it. You know, there's a frog I've started but haven't finished. By the end of 1 week, actually not even by the end of 1 week, after 3 days, I already knew that there was a major problem with my colour scheme. I didn't have a yellow. Now, the only other colour that I ever add to anything is this kind of golden, yellowy ochre type colour. It's my favourite version of it is actually the Daniel Smith's Quinacridone Gold. Kind of muted, kind of dull, kind of goldy toned, not in your face, bright yellow, wah kind of colour. So I took another look at my palettes and I discovered that in the Aquarius palette, there's 2 purples. There's a kind of pinky, violety, light purple, and there's more of a Parma Violet vivid purple. And I went, hang on a minute, that looks like I could mix that. So I took the dark purple, which is this colour, and I mixed it with white. And I got this colour. I went, aha! Because white is one of my colours. So I thought, right, okay, there's a solution. Because it's not about sticking to rules. Rules were made to be broken. The solution I came up with was this. I took my Aquarius palette and I removed the pinky purple, the lilac-y purple that I could mix from the colours I had, which left me a space. I took the nearest colour I could find to the reddish muted colours that I use a lot to slot into this palette because I figured that was the one that would mesh with them best. It was the nearest to the existing lilac. And I found this colour in my Cancer palette, Cancer Moon. Haha. So I substituted that for the lilac I could mix. Now I've got dark blue, grey, white, violet, I call it Parma Violet, this violet colour, and muted reddish pink, burgundy kind of whatever I use. Let's call it Rose Madder for argument's sake. I've got those colours now in my Aquarius palette. So that left me still with room to use my Calypso Green from my Cancer Moon palette. And I chose instead the buttery yellow colour from the Sagittarius palette, which gives me my yellow. So now I've got blue. It's a very dark blue, but I've got blue. I've got a yellow, albeit a very muted yellow, and I've got a version of red, which is this muted pink rose madder colour. So the first thing I did was to try out all of my accent colours. So my new pink, my accent Calypso blue, and my new yellow, and I came up with this. And I like it. What I did do was forget to be loose. It's like I can't help myself. I have to put in details. I have to do things with line work. The difference between those snakes and that donkey is so... I mean, it's like night and day. It's completely different. I want to try and loosen up a little bit, but I don't think I ever want to go so loose that I lose my line work. I'd like to kind of find a happy medium like this. I chose my Aquarius palette fairly randomly. I just decided to use that. And I used it for a week. That's when I discovered I needed the yellow. So now I'm going to use just those colours for a week. I'm not going to bother mixing colours. I'm not going to try anything fancy. I'm just working loosely with only those colours. Let me show you what I'm working with. Rather than trying to rummage around looking for the colour I want, what I've decided to do is pull out the supplies that fit the colour scheme that I've got. One of the pieces of advice that Lee Ellickson gave for working with a limited palette is to use texture and concentrate on texture and tone rather than the colour you're using. So that's what I've gone with. And as a mixed media artist, that works for me. So I'm not going to go through every single thing I've got here. I'm just going to show you what I'm working with. They're all in similar colour tones, as you can see. They all match my palette. I've got Liquitex inks. I've got some of the paints. I've got some gouache, both the jelly gouache and the Arteza. I've got a heavy body white. Acrylic. I've got, these are the Fresco paints from Paper Artsy. So that's my very textured stuff. More paint things. In here, I've got all my colour pencils that fit the colour scheme. And only the ones that fit the colour scheme. I've taken everything else out. I've got anything that fits close enough. I mean, this is a light blue. This is the only one that really stands out, I think. This is a light blue, but it's actually a pastel version of the dark blue that I use. And I've got white in my colour palette, so eventually I'll be able to mix this colour anyway. So I thought, well, yeah, I might as well put it in. I use that one a lot. I've allowed myself a gold ballpoint pen because, you know, I'm allowed to use this Quin gold kind of colour. Actual gold isn't that far off. Similarly, I've got a silver Prismacolor pencil because, you know, I've got grey in my palette and I use silver a lot. So I figured that was okay. Wherever possible, I've stuck with a rosy red, a golden tone yellow, and a very muted kind of pink. This is the exception. This is more of a... It doesn't actually look this colour when you use it. It's a dark flesh colour, but I use this for sketching if I'm doing something that is going to be predominantly cool toned because it stands out. So that's really the only exception I've got. And then in here, I've pulled out all my water-based, or my pen-based, I guess, media. So I've got my oil pastel, not my oil pastels, my Neocolor 2s in here. I've got my colour palette in here. Most of these actually I can use, except the greens. Until I start mixing greens, I don't know what greens I can actually use. But actually this one, when it's very pale, it comes out as that kind of Calypso blue because it's a forest green. So I can actually use that. But all of these, I mean, I've got 2 silvers, I've got burgundy reds, I've got purples, I've got purpley greys, I've got goldy browns, royal blues, reddish blues. So that's basically my colour palette anyway. And then I've got my shadow darks. These are my blacks that I use. So the only two I can't use here are the brown and the green, which happen to be the two that I actually don't like very much out of this set. And then at the front here, I've got my Poscas and I've got a cheap set of acrylic markers that happen to have, this is the exact muted red, purpley, pinky colour that is in my palette. And it happens to be the one and only reason that I bought this set of paints, because I really liked this colour. But actually this yellow is a very golden yellow, so that works as well. I've also got a gold in there that is a very yellowy gold. I've got Posca markers. This, again, these reds, these reddish purpley colours, they're close enough. I mean, that one looks very bright, but it's actually quite dark. It actually comes out more this colour. But I'm sticking to the same colourways. I'm not being too strict about it, because just because that's what it looks like on the pen doesn't necessarily mean that's what it looks like when you actually use it or when you layer it over something else. You'll notice I don't have a black in here. I don't have a black because I've got navy blue and I've got grey. So I can go as close to black as possible without actually using black. I do have one Posca marker in here that is the very fine black marker, and that's only for if I need it for something like a pupil or something like that, because sometimes pupils just need to be that dark. But that's the only thing I'm using it for, and I haven't actually used it yet. My drawing pencils, I use the Pilot Colorino, and as it happens, I've got the purple, the red and the blue. And then over here I've got water-based media, so I've got Pilot pens. This looks like a turquoise, but actually it comes out that Calypso blue colour. Grey, royal blue. I've got a lavender purple. I've got the purpley red, pink, and I've got the purpley red. I should have a gold colour somewhere that's like this sort of yellow ochre colour, but I can't find it. That's a pencil. That should be in my other case. I've got some Triplus markers. Again, this very dark muted red. It looks like it would be very bright, but actually it's very dark and muted and pinky. Same here, this is a similar colour. So I've also got the Jane Davenport Mermaid markers in the blue, the violet, the Calypso, and this red is actually, it looks very bright on here, but again, it's the octopus red, which is actually very dark and muted and dulled, and it matches perfectly the muted pink that is in the Liquitex set, which is the muted pink that I use. So, you know, it works. It works, trust me. I've swatched all of these and they all work together. There's nothing that stands out. So that's what I'm using at the moment, and I'm only using these. I do have these out on the desk, and this is basically my dry media pouch. So this one I can take anywhere with me and just have all the colours that I need. So there you go. That's what I've been doing with myself for the last week and a half. I hope that's kind of made sense. If you're feeling in a rut, or you're feeling like you've got art block, or you're feeling like you're producing stuff that's okay, but nothing special, or you're just not enjoying the process, you know, you're producing things that are good, but you don't enjoy the process, consider doing something like this. I'm not saying that you have to do a whole 365 project. I fancied the challenge because I've never managed to do a challenge like that, and I honestly don't know if I have the staying power to do it. I don't even know if I will make it to the end of March. But I'm giving it a go. Let's see what happens. You know, if you never try, then you're never going to complete it. I don't really care if I complete it or not, so that's kind of taken the pressure off already. I'm surprised I'm 15 days in. But I figure if somebody else can do it, then so can I. Right? And it gives me a way to make sure that I do something every day. I've limited my colours, so I never have to go looking for, oh, what colour shall I do this? I've only got a limited number of colours I can choose. I've got all my supplies right out in front of me, so I can't use the excuse of, oh, I need this particular pen to do this particular bit, and I can't find that particular pen, so, oh, well, I can't finish today's. I've got no choice. That's it. That's all I've got. So it's actually, ironically, been really freeing, because what I'm doing is playing with texture, which is what Lee said she did. And at the same time, I'm inspired to use unusual colours in different layers, like M does. in order to create detail without using detail. You know, it's like that TikTok thing. Tell me you're an artist without telling me you're an artist. Well, this is produce something detailed without using detail. I really like the way Em is able to use her pencils to, again, create texture. And she does some amazing collage work too. She paints pieces of random paper with random colours, and then she cuts things out from those pieces and she collages with it, and it's kind of cool, and I want to try it, but not yet. One step at a time. I've got a year, right? This is a whole year of experimentation. I don't feel like it's a pressure to, oh God, I've got to draw something every day for a year. I don't feel any pressure. I feel relieved because I can draw anything I want. I know what I've got to use. I know what colours I can use. I've got no expectations for the outcome. So if I draw a pink cheetah, I draw a pink cheetah. It's more about enjoying the process because I'm making art for me, and it's completely freed up what I feel like I'm capable of doing. It's an interesting process. I encourage you to try it. As I said, I will leave links down below for the people I've mentioned in the video. If you're interested in trying your own astrological art palette, come over and follow me on Instagram at Romany, and I'm using the hashtag AstroColorsArtChallenge. I also have a section in my stories where some of my patrons are joining in. I don't think they're doing the 365, but they're certainly doing it for the month to see, you know, what they can make with their own astrological palette. It's a good as place as any to start, I figure. If nothing else, you learn what colours you don't like, and that's not a bad thing. I will be back to show you some of the art I've made with these. For now, I'm currently about to go and do number 15, so I shall see you soon. Thanks for joining me. Bye.